Yipee-Ki-Yay, Mr. Falcon.
Welcome back to Yipee-Ki-Yay, Mr. Falcon. We got a good one today. I'm going to be joined by my good friend from college, Vinnie, who is a movie freak. He's maybe the only person I know in real life who I definitely say knows more about movies than me. And his knowledge is extremely focused into a few areas like Ghostbusters movies and the Back to the Future trilogy and absolutely on the Terminator series of films. Nobody knows more about them than him, and we are going to break down for you 10 reasons, at least 10 reasons, I think we have more, why they should fucking stop making Terminator movies, man. There's a Terminator anime headed for one of the streaming services fairly soon. That's a medium that they haven't tried yet, so I guess it's worth a look, but I'm not optimistic. There's a lot of reasons this series, which was great for 2 films, and then not great, increasingly not great for 4 films. They have to walk away from it, and as Vinnie will point out, it's not even like it's a cash cow. You know, these movies aren't making money. The last one was a dead flop. You can talk about the reasons, whatever, but it just didn't work. The ride's over. All right, Arnold is too old to do any more. They with the with the plot of Dark Fate, they did the last possible gasp of him being in a Terminator film. It's over. Short of remaking the original, which would be absolute sacrilege and absolutely unnecessary, and something they tried to do in a roundabout way with the absolutely terrible Terminator Genesis, there's nothing else that can be done. Okay, and to be honest, this series shouldn't have lasted longer than one film. It's a paradox. It's a time travel paradox movie. The original Terminator, okay? It's a loop. It's a cycle. Time is a flat circle, man. And it works when it's that one story, okay? Even adding Terminator 2, you know, cleverly you can write around it. You can write a backstory that makes it make a little bit more sense. You're still fucking with the paradox set up in the original, but it's acceptable, especially because it's one of the greatest movies ever made. Terminator 2 Judgment Day is maybe Cameron's crowning achievement, and it's one of the few sequels that's most people would say it's better than the original. I love the original Terminator, but they're films that are in 2 different genres too, okay? But Cameron that was the last chance, and I think he knew it then, because the technology set up, the advancement of technology set up in the future posited by the original film was at a place that we were not going to get to in the 90s. Okay, now you can manage that when the film came out in 1991. You can deal with that and write around it, and everything kind of works. But as soon as you start approaching August 1997, the original date of Judgment Day dropped in Terminator 1, you have to start changing the entire story, which means you have to start dismantling the time paradox set up in the first one. And man, it just turns into a wild, wild mess. The third film negated so much that was established and in the first 2 films that, if you consider it canon, it kind of ruins them. It absolutely ruins the Black Highway ending of Terminator 2, which is an incredible ending. And the films just get worse from there, and they've tried different takes. They've tried prequels. They've tried sequels. They've tried spin-offs. They've tried a whole movie set in the future war against the machines with Christian Bale, and even that didn't work. So we're going to break it down, detailed why this story, this franchise was never meant to be a franchise, and why they really, really just have to stop making them. And maybe we'll figure out a little bit of why they keep doing it. Let's see. Oh, and all right, so quick rundown for people who may not be super familiar. The original Terminator came out in 1984. Terminator 2 Judgment Day came out in 1991, though it was set in 1995. Then Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines. Then that was followed by Terminator Salvation. Then it was they gave up the numbers at this point and went with subtitles. And then you get Terminator Genesis, with Genesis spelled in some bizarre fucked up way, which is the most offensive entry in the entire series. And then the final film that came out a couple years ago that saw Linda Hamilton return to the role of Sarah Connor, and saw Arnold back again, not as a Terminator this time, but like as a dude named Carl. And that was a Terminator Dark Fate. And that is the last one. I don't know what the anime is called that's coming out. I don't really want to know. So here we go. This is why they should stop making Terminator movies. And if they don't, why you should really stop watching them. All right, welcome back, everybody. Today I'm joined by my good friend Vincent, who I've known for a long, long time, since the dark days when I was in college. What was that? How many decades? I don't even want to think about it.
I don't either.
More than one now. Way more than one.
It's definitely more than two. I'll give you that.
Oh, shut up. Don't. I just saw a thing that said Green Day's album Dookie came out 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Today. And I just feel old, bro.
They're really racking me over the coals with that one, too. They got like a 30th anniversary edition. It costs a lot more than I want to give it.
What, on CD or on
It's
vinyl?
on everything. It's vinyl. Yeah, they got like
One of
a
those
6-disc vinyl and a 4-disc DVD.
I guarantee
CD,
you that the industry has a word for that has something to do with our generation. Like a very grating euphemism for what they do to us when they sell us those things.
Yeah.
It replaced the
sure
box
it rhymes
set.
with scamming. There you go.
Remember the box set? It replaced the good old box set, man. 50
They still
pounds
make
of
those.
plastic.
Not necessarily for music, though. But yeah. I get a lot of movies in box sets still.
Yeah. I just got the Godfather trilogy on DVD for a good price because I can't watch the Blu-ray versions because they're so hideous looking.
I was going to DVD. I heard that the 4K Blu-rays are absolutely beautiful.
All right, I haven't seen the 4K one. I got that. I had the ultimate Coppola restoration version of the first one, and it's like fucking unwatchable. Like, I mean, the exposure is upped on every scene. So every scene that was like nice and dark and moody is now wildly overexposed and then oversaturated to compensate for the overexposure. It doesn't even look like the movie I remember. I can't watch it. It's like there's a streaming version of Highlander out there that's the same way. It's just so bright and to the point where the edges look garbled.
Yeah,
like,
edge enhancement.
Yeah. And,
I mean, you're talking about the average viewer who wants like their new beautiful 4K TV to have beautiful colors, even on movies that don't really look good that way. I'm not going to say look good that way. Movies that weren't filmed with that in mind. You know?
Right. There's nothing worse than trying to watch a movie from the 70s with ultra motion smoothing on a 4K TV.
I mean, for the 4K box set, the one I'm going to show my this is where I get to trade in my true Italian card. I've never watched The Godfather Part 3. So from my understanding, the new box set only has like whatever their new director's cut of it is. So
oh, really?
Really love, yeah.
Yeah.
But the other two movies, which I would imagine most people care about the most, are supposed to be beautiful.
It's got some laboriously long title, something like the death
Coda or whatever it is.
The Godfather Coda, the death of Michael Corleone or something like that.
Which is totally a spoiler. I haven't seen it, but
come on, man. There is another Godfather version out there that they never actually put on disc, to my knowledge.
The chronological thing?
Yeah, he did that twice. He did that back in the 90s, and it was called The Godfather, a novel for television. And it was the first and second one cut together chronologically, right? And then he did it again for HBO, like about, I guess I want to say like before the pandemic, like right before the pandemic. And it was on there for a long time. I thought they would keep it forever because they, it was an HBO project, right? And then one day it just vanished. It's out there though. It's on my super secret server, so I have it.
HBO is a pain in the ass these days. Like everything, Warner Brothers in general is just a mess.
Well, can you even call it HBO anymore? Like it's an app
Max,
called,
whatever it is.
It's a section of an app called Max now. Like Showtime apparently fucking vanished. Did you notice that? It's not even a thing
because I wasn't
anymore.
Subscribed.
I had it for free through Comcast for years and had the app, but it didn't even matter because shows that Showtime put out, they never retained any of the rights to them. Like Weeds was one of their big hits. Dexter, all that stuff went off into the ether and got bought up,
Unbelievable. Didn't they come out with a revival season of that? And wasn't that on Showtime?
No. Yes, they did, and I don't think it was on Showtime. I think wow. That was Amazon Prime streaming exclusive, if I remember right.
I'm going to call you out on that.
All right,
I'm pretty sure. I know that you could get it through Amazon Prime if you had like the Showtime.
Is that what it was?
Purchased through Amazon Prime. Yeah, because they tricked me like that. I was like, oh, I got Prime. I could watch that. And then, So I still haven't seen the revival season.
Maybe I saw it on Prime and then watched
they were definitely advising.
Maybe I watched it in another fashion. But I wasn't crazy about it. It started off okay, and then that series is such a fucking mess. But we're not here to talk about hero serial killers. We're here to talk about killer robots from the future.
Villains, serial killers, right?
We're talking about the Terminator movies. This is a subject that's near and dear to both of our hearts and also gives us a fair amount of acid reflux and pain. Both of us grew up with the first and second ones. I don't know, man. I've seen those at least 100 times each, I think. I rewatched them both today to cleanse my palate after I tried to get through Terminator Genesis.
Wow.
You know how far I made it?
10 minutes?
I did much better. I made it all the way to the part where they get arrested and they play the music from Cops. In like a fucking joke that would have been lame like 20 years ago, right? And it's just and then he's like Arnold smiles for the mugshot, and I was like, "Fuck you, movie! I can't do it anymore." Well,
that was the subject of a bunch of memes, at least. Like, you got something good out of it.
Well, we'll get to the hate on that movie first, but what we're talking about today is a list of reasons that we feel. Vinnie in particular, this is more of his thesis than mine, but I agree with everything he's going to say. Why we feel that they should just take the Terminator series out behind the shed and shoot it. It's done. Yeah. It's run its course. Every story that could be told within the framework has been told, and it wouldn't be worth bringing up except for the fact that they're yet again talking about another movie? Is that what it is? Or
I heard something about an anime. I could be wrong about that. But I do know that they're absolutely going for it.
I've read rumors about an anime series. I've read rumors about just a straight up TV show of some kind, on a streaming service, of course. And I've heard that they're thinking about another movie. And I mean, I guess
they've got all three in production, to be honest.
I guess it's a small mercy that we can be pretty sure Arnold isn't going to come back in any way. I mean, the man is he's just entirely too old to do anything in any Terminator-y capacity at this point, right?
Not only that, but Cameron actually gave an interview where he said wait for this. Ooh. What went wrong with Dark Fate was that they brought back Linda Hamilton and Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I was like, no.
That was the problem?
That was the redeeming thing about that movie. Like, the chemistry that the two of them had was the only thing I liked about that movie.
is the only thing that made it worth watching at all.
Yeah.
All the new shit that they added was absolutely horrendous. And
Yeah.
and we saw that in the theater. We wasted real money on that.
Yeah, but you know what? We paid like, what was it, like $12 each for a private showing of that movie because nobody wanted to watch it.
Nobody was there. That was pre-pandemic. We were alone.
Yeah.
We were utterly. You took a photo of me sitting all by myself.
I do. I have it. Yeah, I'll send it over to you.
Fantastic. Now that movie was. I don't think I would have gone to see it with you if those two weren't in it. And
yeah, I mean, I'm sure I wouldn't have seen it in theaters without the two in it.
Like even then, I think I might have rather watched a YouTube video of the two of them reminiscing about working
I watched
together.
a lot of that too. Yeah,
I'd rather watch that than watch that movie. I saw a great video with the two of them eating candy from Austria. I think it was. Didn't I send you that?
Yeah, I watched it. I'm sure you sent it to me. I definitely saw it. Yeah,
that was hilarious.
I think they were trying to decide like whether the American thing was better or the Austrian thing was better.
One of those things. Yeah. I saw that Stallone's got a reality show now. That should be another. That should be a reality show. Arnold and her reuniting and going on vacations around the world. That'd be fucking hilarious.
I'll watch. They have awesome chemistry.
Well, that's
like I said, the only redeeming thing about Dark Fate.
That's the real thing that, I mean, I think a lot of this comes down to is there was chemistry in a lot of ways and a lot of magic in those first two films. You like T2 far better, right?
Far better than T1?
Yeah.
I guess you could say that, yeah. I mean, I like them both. I mean, I love them both. They're both very near and dear. But yeah, I would say T2 is my movie.
And I mean, they both have a different kind of magic. And rewatching the first one, it really struck me how much Cameron was influenced by John Carpenter. And I mean, he's admitted this in interviews that he was, inspired by Carpenter and Halloween for the idea of a killer robot at its base level. But you can tell that he had to have watched Escape from New York, and a lot of that, especially in the very beginning, the intro, the text, just the whole feel of the beginning of Terminator is very reminiscent of Escape from New York, but obviously done far better with maybe a little bit more of a budget than Carpenter had.
I think it was $6.5 million
for Terminator 1.
Yeah, I watched an interview with. This is a funny story. I watched an interview with Linda Hamilton and Schwarzenegger recently, talking about how they filmed T1, and they were saying, the car that Schwarzenegger punches the window through.
Sure.
That was such a low budget movie. They didn't even own that car. So they punched through that window, they filmed it, and they ran away.
And set it on fire probably a little bit too, at least.
Maybe.
A little bit. That's fantastic.
No, but I mean, I think in terms of like Halloween, I've always said that the Terminator is basically like a 70s, 80s slasher movie, but without knives, it was guns,
Right.
It's pursuing the woman for basically no reason whatsoever, just to the end of the earth.
Well, and that's the core of it, right? The unstoppable machine that you can't buy off, you can't reason with. I mean, they say it in how many of the movies, right? But that's what made the Terminator scary in the original. And plus, cutting his own eyeball out and doing all that gross shit. That stuff was, I mean, and it's not like sci-fi and movies hadn't done the idea of a killer robot before, but usually it kills people or in a very robot-y way. Like the only thing that was a robot about this thing was that it is extremely hard to kill and very strong, right? Otherwise, it killed people the way people kill people. So it took that violence to another level that you didn't see with sci-fi robots yet. In a lot of ways, kind of how Alien and especially Cameron's Aliens took that idea of a hostile alien to another level, action-wise and just fear-wise. And yeah, I think the first one is definitely more of a horror movie, while the second one is definitely more of a sci-fi action film.
Yeah.
There's some scary elements to T2. The T-1000 is pretty freaky and upsetting, but it's a little bit more on a cerebral level, I think.
Well, I was so young when I saw T2 that I was terrified. Like,
were you?
I mean, when I tell you I didn't trust anybody for like 2 weeks, this notion of like the enemy that could just look and sound like anyone. I mean, when I tell you, like, I didn't trust my own mother like 2 weeks. I was like 10, 11 years old. I saw that movie way too young. Right?
I could see that. Yeah, for sure. That aspect of it didn't freak me out for some reason, but I remember the scene from the first one where the T-800 is it T-800, T-101?
I've heard both in the movies. I mean, I'm sure. Yeah.
Whatever. Arnold, when he's in Sarah Connor's mother's home, impersonating her on the phone, and like I didn't quite realize until I was a little older that he whacked her mom.
Yeah.
Like I didn't, like when I was a kid, I'm like, oh, he went to the house and she wasn't there, and but no,
you can't have her contradicting you. You can't have her like call him back and be like, what do you mean I talked to you an hour ago?
Right. And then of course they kind of replicate that in a much better way in T2 with the Wolfie scene in the endlessly meme to death phone booth scene, which was always a great scene before it was a fucking meme. That was always an incredible scene. I just watched, when I rewatched it, I watched the director's cut. And in that one,
I hate the director's cut.
Do you? Okay. Yeah. There's only two things I would keep from the director's cut that I liked.
Okay.
I liked the Kyle Reese stream.
Sure.
And I liked the chip removal from the head and switching it to learning mode.
I'll take that.
I like that. I understand why they were cut. Well, I don't understand why the Kyle Reese one was cut. That's a great scene.
Probably for time. And maybe, I don't know how it works when you have an actor who's in a movie, but then you cut them out entirely. Like, do you have to pay them any differently? Like, maybe it was down to that. Like, Michael Biehn just didn't get the paycheck he would have.
I think they still get paid. I mean,
they still get paid, but maybe not as much as if they made the final cut of the movie.
I have no idea. I mean, at that point, Michael Biehn owned so much of his career to Cameron. I don't think it mattered. And Michael saved his ass on Aliens too. Aliens also. Replacing James Remar, who was originally supposed to play Hicks and who had a pretty serious drug problem at the time, unbeknownst to Cameron, until he got arrested like a week into filming, and Cameron had to fire him. And he called Mike up. He's like, hey, buddy. And he had to come down. He didn't even have time to get resized for wardrobe. He wore James Remar's like colonial marine armor and shit. And apparently there's a scene where you see all the guys from behind, like walking through the alien nest, and it's not Michael Biehn. He's not Hicks in that scene. So it's a fun relationship. And then, he was in The Abyss too, of course, playing a Navy SEAL for the first of like 10 times in his career.
Typecasting, sure. I
have a weird soft spot for him as an actor. I just always liked him. I really loved Reese as a kid. And I think it really messed me up that he was like the first protagonist I saw die in a movie. Like 80s movies did a lot of fucked up things to their characters, and especially in movies meant for younger kids. But I had never seen like the good guy. Like I guess as a kid, I didn't fully understand that Sarah was actually the hero and the main protagonist. Sure. I just thought, he's the good guy and, whatever. And then he fucking dies at the end, and you're like, as a child, you're just like, why? What? But it somehow made me like him even more, because he's never, you were never going to get a sequel with him, right? He was never going to come back. And maybe that's why Cameron cut him out of the sequel. Maybe, Maybe.
I'm trying to think, when you say the first protagonist, I'm trying to decide whether I saw Terminator 1 first or My Girl. Don't put down My Girl. My Girl like scarred a generation, all right?
I won't. That messed me up. You can't see without his glasses.
I sobbed, man. Sobbed.
Oh wow. Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan, but I remember that was kind of a dick punch, that movie.
That was.
And that was meant for kids. That was meant for, that was definitely a youth-focused film.
I've said this a lot. There were a lot of things that were made when we were kids that were directed at kids that probably shouldn't have been. Like Tim Burton's entire career. Let's just start with that. But I mean, even if you want to take like, okay, there was an animated series about RoboCop, which meant that, my brother, who loved the animated series, picked up the movie off the shelf at Blockbuster. And my mom was like, yeah, you watch RoboCop. Let's watch the movie. I'm telling you, I'm in my early 40s now. I still don't know whether or not I'm old enough to watch RoboCop.
Yeah, dude.
But we definitely weren't old enough then. Right?
Man, and that's funny you say that. I showed my wife that movie for the first time. She'd never seen it. And I stumbled on it on a streaming service, and I was like, fuck it, you want to watch where she was in the mood? Like, okay. And it turned out to be like the extra gore version, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, there's only like a few more seconds in.
But still, dude, like very early on, when Murphy gets blasted to pieces with guns, they added like a whole minute to that part. And that's the worst part, man. And she looked at me, I'm like, this is worse than I remember. I have to check the description here, man. Yeah, that was a brutal one. There was a Rambo cartoon when we were kids.
Jesus Christ.
Rambo and the Force of Freedom, I think it was called, dude. And it had like little PSAs at the end, like G.I. Joe did. You know, you see that, and then you go pick up any of them. They're a little different. No, they tried to fuck us up when we were kids. I remember Legend, that messed me up. That scared the shit out of me. They had a Santa Claus movie come out in the 80s when we were young, where John Lithgow was the bad guy, and he like killed a child in it. He like kidnaps and tries to kill a child. So
no, I saw do you remember, okay, when we were younger, there was a Jack Frost movie starring Michael Keaton about like a dad that gets like turned into a snowman.
Yeah, the dad.
We rented the wrong movie. There's a horror movie called Jack Frost. I'm gonna tell you, like, the amount that Blockbuster accidentally messed us up as kids. Like, we got the horror movie one, and I don't know. We watched it, even though it was like very obvious early on that this was not the movie we had intended to watch. Like, we totally watched it.
They made that movie for like $500. That's such a low budget movie.
Probably both of them.
It has that one memorable scene where a woman gets into a bathtub, and it turns out to be the melted evil snowman, and he like reforms and kills her. Yeah, that's what it's about. It's about an evil snowman. And in Suncoast, if you saw the movie in Suncoast video, it had a holographic cover where it would turn from a regular snowman into the evil snowman as he rotated it.
You definitely didn't get that one because we didn't know. Like, okay, so ours always had the generic, like the printed
just the
out cover
Blockbuster
with just the name on it. Yes, I'm sure the rating would have been on there. But, you don't look at it. Like, you don't think about it. You're just like, oh, Jack Frost. That's that thing we saw the commercial for.
Yeah, how could they possibly have two movies named Jack Frost about a magic snowman?
Would you?
Just to fuck you up as a child. Right? That's why. Oh, shit. All right. Well, let's get to the meat of this here. We went
down a pretty serious rabbit hole there.
That's what we do, man. That's what we do. So what's your first, I guess, grievance? What's your first point of order for
why we should not be making more Terminator movies?
Yeah, why
number one is nobody is asking for more Terminator movies.
Okay, that seems pretty significant. So you mean fan base? What?
Nobody. I mean, nobody's clamoring for this. All right, right now, if you think about Disney Plus, let's say, and I know that they're not the rights holders for Terminator, but I'm using this as an example.
Okay.
Right now, Disney Plus is all about hitting the nostalgia button, not for us, but for those kids that grew up in, let's say, like the Lord of the Rings, Star Wars prequels era, like early 2000s, mid 2000s. That's the period of time they're hitting right now.
It's like when we were graduating from high school, kids who were like 12-ish then.
Yeah, like while we were in college, let's say. Like that general era. So I think if you look at that and you look at all the stuff they're doing on Disney Plus with Ahsoka and Bo-Katan and the Bad Batch, they're hitting that era hard because those are those kids that are maybe like out of college now. They've got that disposable money. These are the people that they want to sell to. And if you think about it, like the big tentpole movies from when they were growing up, Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines is not going to be one.
No.
Nobody from that era is all about Terminator.
Yeah,
and we're too old for them to care.
Very, very old by then. T2 came out in 91. I mean, it was set in 95, right? But it came out in 91, 94, 95. I know there's arguments, but I mean, that movie
I think it very clearly says 95 if you look closely enough at the T1000's little computer.
Okay, I'll believe you.
In the car, in the cop car.
Regardless, it was over a decade old at this point. We're talking like that's like your dad's movie at that point, right? Yeah, you're absolutely right. T3 was a it was it a bomb? Like I remember there was there was a lot leading up to it, a big promotional campaign, tons of advertising, and I don't know, did it do well?
Did all right. I mean, I'm not going to call it. It's more on the critical and user rating wise. Like, it's a forgettable movie, but it did make money, for sure. This is, on the strength of, like, at that point, you're talking about us and the people older than us. Oh my God, there's going to be a Terminator 3. Yeah, we went to go see it.
Yeah.
And then we watched it and it was like, all right. And I mean, for anybody younger than us, maybe they saw it and they were like, all right, is that what they were talking about?
Yeah. It was, I hate that one. Honestly, I really dislike that. I dislike it for a ton of reasons, but it was just not a good film. It's just not a good story. I mean, it's the most acceptable storyline continuation among. I mean, we're talking about 6 films here, right? We're talking about the original 3 with numbers and then the 3 with subtitles, let's call them. And I mean, Salvation is one that's a little more forgivable because at least it tried to go beyond the original story.
Yeah.
It tried to tell some new story in the future during the war with the machines, and that it wasn't done right. It wasn't cast right. It looked wrong. Like, there was a lot of things wrong with it, but at least they tried to tell a new story.
I've often said if I was going to make a Terminator 3, if I had to make a Terminator 3, it would be a better Salvation.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The scenes in the show, in the Terminator television show that were
Sarah Connor Chronicles?
Yes, the scenes that were set in the future war. I loved those parts. And I loved what they did with Kyle Reese in the show. I didn't like it's hard to accept when those first 2 movies are so big. They're such big chunks of pop culture and film history. It's really hard to recast any of those characters. The TV show worked recasting Sarah Connor because it was such a different medium. Like, TV and film were so apart at that time. It was forgivable. T2 had been out for a very, very long time. We were pretty sure Linda Hamilton was never going to reprise that role again in a film. Little did we know. Right. But that felt more forgivable. But when you cast Jai Courtney as Kyle Reese, I mean, fuck you. Just go and that other fucking guy with that fucking face who was in everything for like 5 years. You're gonna make him John Connor. It's fuck you too.
I actually didn't love what's her name from Game of Thrones as
she was no.
Well, and I mean, a lot of that was probably the script and not her. Like, when she's like, I'll make pancakes. I'm like, dude, you're supposed to be Sarah Connor.
And you can tell she made some kind of real effort to sound like Linda Hamilton from the second movie. Yeah. Like, there's some lines where you're like, wow, she actually kind of got close to that inflection, but it's like a little kid playing dress up. That whole movie is like somebody's weird fanfic brought to life, with whatever actors you happen to have hanging around at the time who were popular. And then Arnold, old man Arnold,
Wait, what movie are we back to now?
We're making fun of Genesis again.
Oh, no. So when I was talking about Game of Thrones, I meant we were talking about Sarah Connor Chronicles. Cersei Lannister.
Yeah. She's
Sarah
Connor. Yeah. I thought you were talking about poor Amelia Clarke.
No, and it's the same thing with her too. Like, they made her too cutesy, And I get, you're talking about a television show. Somebody as like messed up in the head as Linda Hamilton's Sarah Connor is not going to be the kind of person that you're going to like root for as a main character over the course of a television show. I get that changes needed to be made.
That woman who stares off into space while mindlessly munching a cheeseburger at a gas station. She's not going to be
no fate into it.
Ranting about how men just want to destroy and can't create life. Like, she's not someone you want to hang out with at a barbecue or can pretend to be in PTA when you're on the run.
Right.
Like, that's not going to work out that way. They had to soften her a bit, but I like the show. I mean, you got me into it. You got me watching the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
You know what's funny is that I didn't like the first season. I did like the second season. I felt like they were starting to find the voice.
Better.
They were starting to get some momentum, and then just as it was like getting going for me, they canceled it.
Yep. It was terrible. And you warned me too. You're like, it's going to start getting real good, and then there's no more. And I'm like, and you were right. You were absolutely right. And I liked the guy who played who played John in that. He was excellent. I mean, he was a good Eddie Furlong stand-in, you know. But again, they got. I always blank on character actors' names. I know everything he's been in. Who was John Connor in T3?
Nick Stahl, I want to say.
Nick Stahl, right? Sin City, Carnival, Nick Stahl. Yeah, he was. Other than the height being right, I don't know. He was okay.
I mean, so I actually don't have a ton of issues with the cast in Terminator 3. Like, I liked Claire Danes in that. I liked Nick Stahl in that. I liked Christiana Loken in that. It's the script, and I think I could say that for almost any Terminator, like more or less. Okay. Like, I don't have problems with the people. It's the films themselves and what these people are given that I'm just like, why?
Yeah.
Time and time again.
Yeah, they don't get much to work with. I think Salvation had the most interesting script, and that was. I also felt like that was the only sequel after 2 that really tried to be earnest. Like it was a very serious film. All the stakes were very real. There were no one-liner jokes. There was no Arnold. So, I mean, it was a whole different atmosphere. But, I mean, you know, T3, there was jokey shit.
Talk to the hand.
The star sunglasses, dude. Jesus fucking Christ. And yeah, every time they try to call back to something cool from T2 and make it stupid, you just want to crawl inside yourself and die. And then Genesis came out and just basically said, hey, we're going to take everything you loved from the first one. We're going to make that real stupid too. You know, fuck that movie. All right. So nobody's clamoring for more Terminator content. Yeah. So that implies that, I mean, like we said this already, there's really no more stories to tell in this universe.
That's a whole nother
right?
issue I have with it.
Okay,
right, so if you want to get into like the canon, like into the story itself, Terminator 1 is what we call a bootstrap paradox or a causality loop. It's basically, something
time
like
travel movies.
Time travel. So when we talk about like, Arrival or Lost, it's this nature of time is not linear. It's a circle. Anything that happened. You cannot change the past. So one of the things that always bothers me is in Terminator 1, Kyle Reese explains it as John Connor already won. Like, we won the war against the machines. There was no move left for Skynet except to maybe like make one last desperation move. They have enough time to send one thing back in time, and then the human resistance has enough time to send one person back through time to stop that thing right before they destroy the time equipment.
Yes, that is how it is explained.
Every single movie after that craps on it. And I mean, even Terminator 2 contradicts that, but we let Terminator 2 slide because Terminator 2 is an awesome movie.
Yeah, and you if you're clever enough, you could write around that in a way that
I mean, like, it's possible that Kyle Reese didn't know that, maybe like one more person, or I guess in this case, a T-800 was sent back.
Yeah, something could have happened after he was sent back that he didn't know about, right?
And I mean, I don't know how you get away with, like, there was another Terminator that went back, but I mean, when we get into the sequels, or the Beyond 2 sequels, you start to see this contradiction of we already won the war. Like, their defense grid was smashed. They had no hope left. But then, like, in Terminator 3, he's talking about how, like, Catherine Brewster's wife later becomes more important and their kids become more important. And then Genesis, like, they turn John Connor. And I'm just like, when did you guys win this war exactly? And, like, why, if you didn't win, why is it necessary to keep sending crap back through time to kill people? And if you didn't win, or if they, let's say they were still going and they had all the time in the world to send another one and another one and another one, send 50 of them back. And that's when you start to get into all the little, well, if you can do this, why can't you do that? that really makes these movies fall apart.
Right, right. And what it really needed was a film set during the war, basically the intro to Genesis. We needed to see that explained in a way that allows for at least the T1 and T2 characters to be sent back in time, and B, provides a reason why more weren't able to be sent back in time. Like, we needed to see how that all played out. And like, I was with Genesis. I was really trying as they were showing that and explaining that, and then it just fucking fell apart immediately as soon as he went back through time. But yeah, it's one of those time travel movies that, like you said, it relies on a paradox. And when you do that, it's really hard to do anything after that without breaking your own rules. And
I mean, like you said, if they had done a movie after Judgment Day, like, we're in the war now, then it's okay. Because, I don't know, we could have watched the war play out, or something.
Because in some universe, in some eventuality, for all the events of the first two films to take place, the war had to have happened, even if it was erased by a change in the past. At some point, that war happened.
Yeah, I mean, it always happened. Yeah, no, it always. And this is yet another thing.
Yeah.
Right.
That's another thing to talk about, because at the end of T2, like we said, in the director's cut, there's a definitive end. She sees her family happy after the war was supposed to have happened. It didn't happen. They clearly avoided it. Yeah. You get the Dark Highway ending from the theatrical cut, and yeah, it's uncertain. It seems like they struck a blow against Skynet. They definitely changed the timeline. They changed the future in some way.
You don't know that.
Did they fully prevent the war? We don't know. We can assume they at least delayed it, or at least changed the dates, right? Because we don't know that either, though, right?
No, you don't know. That's the beauty of the Dark Highway at Night ending. It's one of the things I love about that so much.
Yeah.
It's because, all right, in my head, I know how a bootstrap paradox works, and I know how a causality loop works. I know there is no changing the past. Like, it's Oedipus Rex. It's Anakin Skywalker in Revenge of the Sith. You have the hubris to spit in the god's face and say, no, and they hold back at you and say, yeah, well, watch this.
Yeah.
You cannot change. I know in my head, nothing they did affected Judgment Day.
Mm-hmm.
The day after that, they blow up Cyberdyne. I'm sure the military looked at that and said, oh, wow, we got caught with our pants down there. We didn't even have any idea that was coming. This is more than ever. We need a defense grid that's intelligent and plugged in. And hey, of course we have like their research, submitted to us for patents and everything.
As I was just going to say, if you think that the Pentagon was dumping funding into Miles Dyson's research and they weren't getting daily copies of his entire server,
at least something,
you're out of your mind. Like, absolutely,
so
absolutely were.
That's the way I think about it in my head. In my heart, Terminator 2 is a movie about, hope and faith in humanity, and there's no fate but what we make for ourselves, and breaking that predetermination. And so in my heart, I do hope that they prevented Judgment Day, both for them and for us. Because this is, like, we're 90 seconds from midnight on the doomsday clock or whatever for the same reasons. This is, a fable about our own problems. I gotta hope. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna retract something that I said earlier about T2, and it's scaring me as a kid. I lied. The nuclear explosion scene scared the living shit out of me. And it was the first time I had ever conceived of that as a reality. And it looks a little fake now. Like, you can tell that they're animatronic people. It didn't look fake then. It was horrifying. And that layer of horror over top of the whole killer robot thing, it just made it very, very real, because that was a very, very real thing that can always happen. And we were a little more cognizant of it then, because we were a little, we were much closer to the end of the Cold War. Like, it was still kind of a thing. It was happening. But it's still possible now. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, I mean, I look at that Black Highway at night, and I think of that like Schrodinger's apocalypse. Like, it can be either way, and it's up to you to kind of put it together for yourself. And the only thing that can ruin something like that is if somebody comes along and pisses all over it with a part 3. Yeah. And not only a part 3, but a part 3 that changes the rules of time travel to allow for changes. So that was really the first place where I got really mad that they were continuing this franchise. And it's not like they've done anything to really change my mind since, you know?
No, they've just gotten worse and then fucked with the timeline thing more and more until eventually they have a character who's living in like 3 timelines simultaneously with memories that he couldn't possibly have. And
this is Kyle Reese in Genesis.
Yeah. And then they had try to get Arnold to explain some shit about quantum physics in his accent, and it just hurts so bad. Also, I want to know who the fuck decided to name her Catherine Brewster. Did they do that before or after they heard Arnold say Brewster? 90 fucking times.
Jonathan Mostow, I want to say, was the director of that.
Yeah, it was. Holy shit. All right. So is that 2 points officially down?
I don't know. We've covered a lot here.
Okay.
Another thing that I'd like to say, I don't want to see writers writing more Terminator. I don't want to see writers writing more South Park, Family Guy, The Simpsons, Mission Impossible. You know, all of these things are things that we grew up on. When we were kids, George Lucas took Flash Gordon and Seven Samurai and he made Star Wars out of it. I'm sure with other, things too.
Yeah.
And when we were kids, the people took Monty Python and they made The Simpsons and Family Guy and South Park. And now I don't want us, our generation, writing more South Park and Simpsons and Mission Impossible. I want to see what these things birth for a new generation.
Yeah.
I'm tired of seeing the same old stuff.
Yeah, they've never. I mean, Hollywood has always been really big on recycling material, but it's never been to this level.
Yeah,
where they're not just doing remakes. They're just, like you said, they're trying to continue things that should not be continued. I mean, stories, characters, shows, series, they have to be allowed to end themselves. Like, stories have to end at some point, I mean, after you've done the sequels and the prequels and the spin-offs, just let it the fuck go, man. How many Hobbit movies do we have? And they're talking about redoing those now, I heard. They're the original Lord of the Rings. I'm like, come on, dude.
The Hobbit could actually use a redo, because I felt like, all right, you had 3 3-hour movies from that one book, and it just felt like way too long.
Yeah, man.
There needed to just be one movie about the Hobbit, and that could be...
I gave them their due diligence. I gave them all at least one watch, but I don't remember anything from those second 2 Hobbit movies at all. Very forgettable. And yeah, it's just another layer of unoriginality that we're seeing. I mean, I know we sound like old men shouting at the sky a little bit, but I mean, when people are like, wow, Oppenheimer and Barbie came out, we 2 original films and Hollywood's back. It's like, Jesus Christ, man. I mean, when most of the slate of a year is spin-offs, sequels, and remakes, I mean, what are we even doing anymore? Yeah,
we're just treading water with Marvel at this point.
Like,
I can't tell you how many more Marvel movies we're gonna get, but
I don't know what they're going to be doing with them. And then not only that, but you've got Sony making Spider-Woman movies apparently still.
Madam Web or whatever.
Yeah, Madam Web that's going to be a real hot item. That's going to be a huge success.
None of Sony's like Spider-Man spin-off movies have ever been successful. Yeah, like Morbius and Venom and Venom 2.
It's Morbin time, man. I actually kind of like the first Venom. I'm a Tom Hardy guy. I love Tom
I liked
Hardy.
them. It's not like they lit the world on fire.
No, I didn't. I mean, I expected Morbius to be a lot worse when I watched it from all the hate that it got. I mean, it wasn't good, but I've seen far more unwatchable movies. I think people just fucking hate Jared Leto, man. They just hate him. Which is understandable. It's absolutely
got a lot of crap for the Joker too.
Oh God, those movies I can't go near them. The Suicide Squad, whatever the fuck you're calling them, I can't. I just can't.
Birds of Prey was okay.
I didn't watch it. It. I did like I like Joker, of course, like everyone did.
Oh, Joker was fantastic.
And I'm kind of psyched to see the second one with Lady Gaga. I'm into that. I like the new Batman enough. What? All right, what? No?
I didn't hate it. I just didn't, all right. I don't like the idea of remakes in general. And I know that like Batman is something that just keeps getting remade, but I don't think I'm in a place right now where I feel like Christopher Nolan's trilogy needs to be remade. Like,
Okay.
we'll get there one day, but I'm not there yet. Like the Batman Begins and The Dark Knight were, I mean, that could be like tier 1 level favorite movies for me. I never really got super into The Dark Knight Rises, but I don't know. I didn't hate Robert Pattinson in the Batman, but I didn't need it either, you know?
I hear you. I appreciated that they at least tried to explore some different aspects of Batman for a change. I mean, they tried to make him more of a detective, which we haven't really seen in a film before. They mercifully avoided an origin story. Thank God. You know, we absolutely didn't need that. And this is the youngest Batman that we've ever seen. So, yeah, I think so, right? I mean, compared to Keaton or Kilmer or
I couldn't tell you how old any of them.
Yeah, I mean,
Adam West looked pretty old always. You know, so.
We're gonna count the mayor. Okay, Adam West. Fuck, man, I haven't seen that movie in a while.
I adore that movie.
Oh God, that's the one with
for
the
its
shark.
Own reasons. I'm not saying that's a great
No.
Dark Knight counterpart. It's just you know, like sometimes you're just in the mood to watch some shark repellent. And that's
Well, I mean,
where you go.
At this point, characters like Batman and Superman, they're like characters from the Bible. I mean, people are gonna constantly want to tell stories about them and create different versions of them, and for one reason or another, I think we just kind of have to accept that. That's never gonna go away. But as we end this MCU era and this finally, hopefully, end this DCU era, what takes its place? And I think a lot of filmmakers are asking that, you know, and like we also at this point don't have a roster of really good directors out there. Like the directors who command a lot big budgets and can almost be counted on to deliver every time, they're old.
Yeah.
You know, they're from previous generations. I mean, you got Cameron spending the last 20 years making his Blue People movies. He basically just fucking abandoned all of us, you know, when we needed him most.
I'm going to tell you the truth. Like, James Cameron can sit over in the corner and make his Avatar movies for all I care.
Yeah,
I have been really pissed off at James Cameron for a long time now. Like, you know, we went to go see the Terminator 2 movie. And I'm not gonna die on the hill of like I needed Robert Patrick's balls in that film, but you know I don't love it when filmmakers make digital changes to their movies.
We're talking about a few years ago. T2 was re-released in theaters, and there were a couple things that were digitally obscured. And one of them was Robert Pattinson's little sack shot when he
Robert Patrick.
Robert Patrick. You got Batman on my brain.
Yes.
Robert Patrick's little sack shot when he gets spit out by the time travel orb.
Right, which like fine for taste. I'm okay with something like that, but like you know they digitally put Arnold's face on the stunt man, and that kind of rubs me the wrong way. You know, like when they do that motorcycle jump
scene.
Off. Yeah.
And you know, I noticed it too because it was always so glaringly obvious that it wasn't Arnold.
Right.
And I don't know how
you
I
love these
feel
movies. You
about
love them warts and all, and it's a product of how they did that in that time. You know.
Yeah. And you look for things like that when you really love the movie and you've seen it 100 times. And when it's not there, it's jarring, you know?
Yeah.
You're like, fuck, man, I used to take a shot every time I saw Robert Patrick's balls. And now I can't see Robert Patrick's balls.
I actually told you, like a month or two ago, I went looking for it because I'd heard about it.
Yeah, did you?
But I had never seen it. And
so I find evidence of this?
I did. I actually texted you a photo.
Oh God, you did. You circled it and everything.
Yes.
Oh fuck.
Because I had never seen it before. So I actually went looking. I paused the movie. I had been looking in. I mean, this is weird because I'm fully aware of the anatomy. I had been looking in the wrong place. Like,
what?
Because he bent. Back? He was like, yeah, it was like further. I don't know. But stuff like that. I mean, I don't know how into like True Lies and you know The Abyss you are, but
pretty into, yeah.
True Lies, the new 4K Blu-ray that's coming out. they used AI to upscale it from HD to 4K.
Oh no.
And that's not what you do. You go back to the original negative, you scan it in 4K, you do all of your little, cleanup. But people have said like the AI wasn't perfect because it never is. People were circling areas in the movie where I can't remember the guy's name, not Schwarzenegger, the sidekick.
Tom Arnold?
Tom Arnold. They were showing places where Tom Arnold's facial expressions had been changed by the AI when they went to upscale it, and you just don't do that in film. Like, so I feel like James Cameron really needs to be saved from himself at this point. And if he just wants to spend the rest of his life making Avatar movies, great. Hey, man, but leave this stuff to somebody else.
Look, I got to say it. I mean, I think directors have a shelf life, and I really respect Tarantino for saying, this is my 10th movie, it's my last movie, and I'm getting the fuck out. I don't know if I believe him, but at least he's trying to take a stand. I think if something comes along that gets his dick hard enough, he'll fucking go for it and make it, right?
I can see him getting involved in something.
Yeah, like at least within the next 5 years. I mean, still, any actor will be willing to work with him or desperate to work with him, right? But after seeing the last couple movies Scorsese's made, after watching the Avatar 2, you can keep going. Like, directors need to retire at some point. Their lens isn't right anymore. It doesn't reflect. They haven't been normal people for so long.
I can't really think of anything Spielberg's done in the last.
No,
I liked Ready Player One, but I loved the book a lot more.
Yeah, he's
putting that aside. I mean,
he's become a producer more than anything else. And he's great at it. That Masters of the Air thing finally started airing on Paramount Plus, Apple TV or whatever the hell they're calling it now. That's where that's siloed. Somehow, after doing Band of Brothers in the Pacific with Tom Hanks on HBO, they leave it to do this third World War II series that people have been waiting for fucking years, since before the pandemic, and it ends up on Apple Plus.
You asked what comes next. That's what comes next. It's all the streaming network original shows. Well, dude, that's where all the originality is going. That's where all the talent's going right now.
And what they've done is they basically recreated cable, but shitty. They recreated cable when the on-demand era hit, because there was a period people might not remember when you had cable TV with on-demand, and that was streaming. Like, not everything that was on say HBO was available for streaming at all times, but they got pretty close before it went into a full-fledged streaming service, which was, I think, HBO Go originally, maybe, I don't know. But now, what else is it? It's this collection of apps, which are basically channels that you have to subscribe to individually, and then there's other apps for live TV, and then it's just all sandwiched together, and you can get the subscription through Amazon or on its own or through your cable TV provider. But God forbid you try to cross-pollinate them, they won't work. And it just makes you just want to stop and pirate everything.
And just to add on, now when I originally cut my cable, it was because getting Netflix and Hulu was significantly cheaper. Yeah. Now to get Peacock and Paramount Plus and Apple TV, it's basically the same, and they're all throwing the ads back in now.
Yep, because they're not desperate for subscribers anymore, because they're all that's left. And now comes the part where they milk you. And people say that we're lying, but I swear the first time I saw ads show up on YouTube, I knew this is where everything was going to go eventually. You didn't know how long it was going to take, but you knew eventually this is where they were going to get you to. And YouTube's gotten to be so frustrating to watch. Yeah, Amazon Prime just dropped ads in, and a lot of the problems that you see in the Terminator film series are everywhere. This beating of dead horses, we don't really care what the story is. We're just going to label it as some nostalgic property to hopefully rope in the old farts and, I don't know, make new viewers think that it's part of some legacy. And then just shovel it. Yeah.
And I think part of the reason that the films aren't doing as well these days is because the audience isn't responding to that. Like, you have the Marvel Cinematic Universe really hasn't been popular since Endgame, because the next phase of that was the nostalgia phase. It's all the multiverse stuff.
Right.
And yeah, it's cool for me to watch a Spider-Man movie and be like, hey, that's Tobey Maguire. I loved that, back in the day. But like, my daughter watching that has no idea who Tobey Maguire is.
No.
They don't connect with that at all. They're like, when is this going to be over?
Yeah.
And it's the same. Like, you watch like a Ghostbusters Afterlife. They don't know who like Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray are,
and they shouldn't. There's no reason they should. And I felt I watched the Flash movie just because I wanted to see Michael Keaton in the Batman suit again. Yeah. And literally fast forwarded through a lot of the rest of that movie, and it was a terrible film. It was just a terrible movie. I saw, come on, man, it was
I'm not gonna say terrible, like it wasn't awesome. It had very serious flaws, but I do love the Flashpoint story. And it's a story that they've already beaten to death, because they did it on the TV show. They made an animated Flashpoint movie, and now they made the live action Flashpoint.
See, you're way deeper into this than I am.
I am. But what I love about the Flashpoint story is, at its core, it's just, like this story about like a kid that misses his mom.
No,
and he has the opportunity to bring her back. And then, here's spoilers, because we're telling you not to really watch it anyway. He's got to take it back. Like, at the end of the movie, he's got to like put the world back to how it was when his mom was murdered. And God, that sucks. That hurts so hard. I felt for that kid.
That's good stuff. But it's not the story
so I'm not
itself.
Saying
it's the packaging, man. It's the packaging. It's the slick, just fucking everything's in focus, everything's lit, everything's a green screen background. Just fuck you, dude. Like, I haven't seen a real shadow in a movie in I don't know how long. It's frustrating, because I don't know what filmmakers who make movies like this are striving for, because it's not realism. They're not trying to make it look like a comic book anymore. It's like they've developed this very distinct comic booky style of film that doesn't look like anything else except that, and it's gotten really fucking old. I mean, it's not even stylized to the point where, like, say something like 300,
Sure.
or Sin City.
Yeah.
Which I thought were very inventive and really interesting to look at, but it was also gimmicky. And by the time sequels came out, it was played.
For both of them, yeah.
Exactly, yes, for both of them. Good. The second Sin City was almost unwatchable.
It was almost as watchable as the second 300. So.
Well, Ava Green kind of saved the second 300 a little bit, but whatever. That was only a couple minutes. It was one scene. It's just one fucking scene. I saw that in the theater for some ungodly reason too. So I don't.
You know why? Because you liked 300 so much.
That's what it was. Yeah. I know you're gay. You've seen 300 5 times. That's what. That was in a movie. I didn't come up with that. That's not my thing. Okay, I think it was in a TV show. Party Down. That's where it was from.
Party Down. I've never heard of that one.
You should see it. It's a excellent comedy with a lot of familiar faces, Adam Scott and Lizzie Kaplan, and it's about a bunch of struggling and failed actors working as caterers in LA, and every episode is a different party that they cater, and it's just excellent comedy. It's from it's from the early, I think it's from the aughts, maybe the late aughts, the early teens. And it's before all those characters got like their breakout everything. And you could tell that they're acting stuff they lived. And Dan Marino's actually in it too. Not the football player, the actor.
Oh.
And yeah. And
Isotone.
It's just fucking, oh dude, you should, if you get the chance, check it out. Party Down. There's only, there's two seasons. And then they did a revival season right after the pandemic, which was okay. It wasn't terrible, but that was worth revisiting. See, there's stories that are worth revisiting because for a lot of reasons. There's stories where the characters are good enough that you can keep telling stories about them. The Rocky series, every time you think that's fucking dead. I mean, they went through 5 films and then took a 15-year hiatus, and then Rocky Balboa comes out and you're like, well, fuck, man. all right. And then Creed comes out and you're like, well, fine, fuck, all right. Give the man an Oscar nomination. Sure, whatever. Yeah. So some stories...
I actually do think that Stallone got hosed out of an Oscar.
Oh, absolutely. I had never really cared about the Oscars for a number of years before that. And I actually watched that one because I was pretty sure they were going to give it to him. Like, I thought... he got it once when he began his career. I thought they would think it was a nice bookend. Right. Yeah. As a writer, you didn't get the best actor Oscar, but
this would have been a supporting actor.
Right. This wouldn't have been his first acting Academy Award, but it would have been a nice bookend for his career. And also,
don't act like he's done.
Oh no,
we got like at least 4 more Expendables movies coming at some point.
Brother, I think he's done doing anything that's going to get nominated for anything other than a Razzie.
Oh, of course. But don't think like when you say bookending his career, don't think he's done by a long shot.
All right, so his career of good movies.
Sure.
People might not know, but I'm one of the biggest Stallone fans in the world, and I'll forgive him a lot, but I can't forgive him Expendables 4. I just fucking saw that, and Jesus,
I haven't seen it yet.
That coupled with like the Escape Plan series, like, man, I don't know what he's doing. Like I said, he's doing reality shows now with his family. My man's just leaning into retirement, I hope, and good for him, dude. He's what, 80 almost.
Got to be up there.
Yeah, he was born in 47. What does that make someone? 70 something high.
70 something.
70 old. 70 old. But and then there's stories that just don't have any more gas. And the fucking Terminator is done, dude. Ghostbusters is done. Like, did you see the promo photos of the new Ghostbusters with...
Well, I saw the trailer.
Did you? Okay. I mean, when those first promo photos came out, it was sad almost. Like, I don't want to see these old men in the characters that I loved when they were young. Like, it makes me feel really fucking old, And kids certainly can't enjoy it.
This is a conversation for another day, but I mean, unpopular movie opinion of the day. I would have rather seen a sequel to Answer the Call than pulling out old man Bill Murray.
Agreed.
I think if you had taken Answer the Call and just kind of gone like, okay, we got a lot of crap for that one and it wasn't perfect. Let's make a sequel that smooths out the things that they didn't like. Like, I didn't need nods to the original every 5 minutes. You would just kind of let it go on its own path. I would have rather seen that than what they're doing now.
Jesus. And that's the other thing too. If you're telling a new story that's 50% nods to something from decades ago, you're fucking up. Because that new story isn't going to have any staying power because it relies on a lifetime of cherishing something else. Like, so what did you make?
It's also reminding me, like, while I'm watching this crappy thing, you're reminding me of something I liked better. So what you're telling me is, hit stop on this, go grab the other thing you like more. And that's absolutely. I don't need to hear "I'll be back" in every Terminator. First of all, like we said, we don't want more Terminator. No. But if we're gonna have more Terminator, I don't need to hear "Come with me if you want to live." Nope. And "I'll be back" in every single one of these things.
Nope. No more thumbs up. I don't need to see a thumbs up. And Genesis was the king of that. It seemed like that was the entire pitch of that movie. Was, we can't bite off T2 because there's just no way we can do it. So we're just going to give 1,000 nods to T1 to the extreme of having old man Arnold fight his younger self, his younger, very painfully CG self.
You know what became painfully obvious to me watching Genesis was they killed John Connor, and they did it again in Dark Fate. And they killed Skynet in 2, and they killed Skynet in Dark Fate. And what got me like really like I don't know what it's like. Okay, every time they kill John Connor or Skynet, a new hero rises up or a new villain rises up. So it's like Skynet comes back, or John Connor comes back, or Danny Ramos, whatever you want to say, Kyle Reese, whatever. And it hit me like how pointless it all is. Like, it's like, no matter what you do, one of them is coming up. to replace, so like, why do we keep fighting this fight movie after movie?
Yeah, what does it matter to me who these people are fighting if their destiny isn't set, if it's pointless? Like I don't get it either. And I maintain that part of the one of the coolest things about the original film was a lot of the stuff that you didn't see, a lot of the stuff that was implied. There's one shot of John Connor in the original where he's looking out over the battlefield with his binoculars, and you see that badass scar on his face.
That's 2.
Was that 2? That was the intro to 2. So they never show adult John in the original Terminator. So you only have Kyle and his dreams and that initial beginning sequence of the war. Okay.
Yeah.
So drenched in mystery, right? John Connor isn't even a person. He's an idea, a hero that Kyle worships. And it really, really works. And T2 still works because you don't have adult John. You don't have that John Connor. You have a 10-year-old child. Now, Edward Furlong was like 13.
14, yeah.
Right. His voice was 14 in some scenes, and he was 13. But you kind of have to do that because a lot of that movie just wouldn't work with a 10-year-old.
No, absolutely.
But whatever. He's a child. He's a fetus practically. So it's not like you got that character and spent time with him. Part of the intrigue of John Connor is the fact that you never really meet him. And then they blew that all up in Salvation. And he turns into Christian Bale, and then you see how he got the scar on his face. And it's just like, the more you reveal about the cool shit, the less cool it is. It just is. The more you explain a joke, the less funny it is.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing, like they've done it in every prequel does it. Every single prequel does it, practically. Predator series is another film series that, we could do a whole episode picking that apart and why that needs to desperately fucking stop being done. But that's a film series that's been through sequels, it's been through spin-offs, it's been through one prequel, and we've got another one coming. Another man.
Predator?
We got another
the
Prey
sequel? Yeah.
Yeah, Prey, World War II. Because World War II wasn't fucking horrifying enough without aliens.
Oh, wait, so it's not a direct sequel to Prey? Like, we're not going to get the same Native American?
No, it takes place during World War II.
Okay.
So, sure. How did you feel, like, as an aside, how did you feel about Prey? Did you see it?
I did see it. I didn't hate it. I didn't like it either. It was entertaining enough. Like, I think if I'm watching this just for pure, like, mindless, sit on the couch, flick through my phone and kind of like, I watched the English version, not the original Native American language track that they were trying to.
Yeah, they're trying to push that, right?
If you're just like, like watching them fight the Predator, it's fine. I'm sure it's not historically accurate in any way. I'm sure like the fight scenes don't hold up in any kind of like realistic manner. But as an entertaining Predator movie, it was fine. It doesn't hold a candle.
So,
you can tell that I don't feel as passionately about Predator because I'm not like, no, stop making Predator movies.
If we wanted to get into it, I would go raging about Prey. I fucking hated that movie. And
you sent me like a 10-paragraph essay.
I know, dude.
After I was like, it was fine.
Well, that was the most infuriating thing to me about it, was that so many people were sucking its dick like it was a worthy sequel to the original.
No. But
just because they tried something different. That doesn't count, man, to me. Just trying something different doesn't make up for the fact that you had a woman trying to kill an elk with a fucking tomahawk in the beginning. Like, go fuck yourself, dude. Like, they could have made it so cool. And the Predator himself was very, very cool in that film. The aesthetics, the way they presented him, the fact that his gear was older than the Predator we met in the 88 movie.
Yeah.
All that stuff was cool. And then it was wrapped in this ridiculous package with this horrible fucking dialogue. And it's just, no. And it's the same way I feel when I watch anything beyond Salvation in the Terminator series. Like, Dark Fate, I don't think I'll ever watch it again. Have you seen it since the theater? Or You
Oh
have.
yeah,
Right?
I mean, not like I might have seen it once in its entirety since the theater. I did, coming into this, you watched Genesis today. I watched parts of Dark Fate a few days ago. Mostly just the Linda Hamilton stuff, to be honest with you. Like,
okay,
just watching her bicker with Carl, where like Grace is sitting there going like, so your name is Carl, and Schwarzenegger's like, that's what they call me, and Linda Hamilton just leans over with this viscera in her eyes, and she goes, I'm never gonna fucking call you that. Like, I fall over like every time.
I
Like the
love
whole thing,
Linda
like, you want to
Hamilton,
keep
man.
your phone in a bag of potato chips, keep your phone in a bag of potato chips. Like the way that they bicker with one another was awesome.
Well, that's chemistry, man, and they always
Yeah.
had really good chemistry. They had to pull T2 off because that was such a movie of weird relationships. But Edward Furlong had chemistry with both of them too.
Well,
Like everything worked in that film. Everything, and just like Michael Biehn and Linda Hamilton had really excellent chemistry in the first film. Absolutely, you bought all of that shit that they went through together, and you bought the attachment that they formed between each other in a really, really short amount of time. Even movie time, it's a really short amount of time. You never really question it. Also because that film is incredibly well paced, but so is T2. Like, it's a marvel. And then after that, relationships, chemistry, fuck it, man. We just gave these characters names. Accept it. They are who they are. Well, you don't like it? I don't get it.
I mean, what really bugs me about Dark Fate, and this is kind of like something that I get annoyed with. Like I said before, like, if this, why not then this? Like the Rev 9 in Dark Fate is it's like a T800 underneath. Like, it's got the endoskeleton, but then it's the T1000 over it. Like, it's got the liquid metal.
Yeah.
And they can split apart at will. And they never give you any good reason for why it just doesn't do that the whole film. Like, why it doesn't just fight as two things. Because, like, if it was to just fight as two things,
none of it
would
makes any
mess
fucking
them
sense.
up. Like,
none of it makes, and that's the only advantage that model seems to have over the T1000. Like, in every way, it seems like the T1000 is a far better model
than anything that they've done, right?
Especially because outside of the director's cut of T2, you don't see any real weakness the T1000 has other than getting dropped in a vat of molten metal.
Okay, wait a minute. You know how I said before that I didn't like the director's cut of Terminator 2? You just zeroed in on the exact scene that pisses me off.
Oh, when his shit
when
gets
his
garbled
foot is like melting into the floor. Yeah. So what I really love about the theatrical cut of that movie is that John Connor knows his mom so well that he's like, shoot. And in that director's cut, he's got to look down and see that this thing is melting into the floor.
And that's the only way he knows.
never liked that. I was like, you took that character moment away. That, and I didn't like the stupid smile that they practiced with Schwarzenegger earlier in the film. That, I could take it or leave it.
There was a jokey moment that didn't really need to be there. And a lot of those
sort of like the mugshot scene that you were talking about before.
Yeah. Well, a lot of those little moments that they cut out at T2 that he put back in, I have a feeling that they were cut because if you watch them and pay attention, I think they were cut because Edward Furlong kind of went up on a couple of his lines. Like they weren't delivered very well.
Hey, he's not in most. I mean, like, there's that scene where the T1000 is looking around his bedroom.
Yeah, he's in the smiling scene. I mean, that like his reaction. Arnold was very funny in doing that, and it made me laugh. But I mean, yeah.
You're talking about, you just mentioned like the pacing in Terminator 2 is so great. Start chucking in more scenes and
Right, absolutely. And yeah, that bothers me a lot in the end. The foot thing, unnecessary, and also to me, like the whole thing is that he glitches out after the liquid nitrogen thing. Right? It did something to him. It fucks up his ability to differentiate himself from stuff he touches, and he starts looking like things he touches unintentionally.
Yeah.
I always liked the original version because it made him seem so much more invincible.
Yeah.
You can freeze him, blow him apart into little tiny fucking pieces, and he still keeps coming. That 100% was fucking scary.
Got lucky killing him at the end.
Yeah, if they hadn't been in that exact place, while the foundry was running, I don't know how they would have killed him.
And it makes you ask, like, why send an inferior Terminator back in T3? Why have like an inferior Terminator in T4?
Yep.
T5,
and none of that makes sense.
Like,
you can write around why there's a T800 and a T1000 in T2. You could figure that out. Like in my head canon before the sequels came out, I always imagined that the T1000 and the Time Machine stuff was in some kind of very cutting edge research Skynet facility.
Schwarzenegger calls the T1000 an advanced prototype.
Right, exactly.
So a prototype to me sounds like, all right, we made one of these and it's like really cool, but they're not ready to, roll them out yet.
Right. And it was super secret and I assumed super secure, so it would have lasted till the end of the war in the future. That all tracks. They had one T1000, period. Yeah. They wanted to hit 2 time periods just to for redundancy.
Sure.
Fine. Why they sent the older model back to the 80s, you can also write around that. They had more data about 1991 than they did about 1984. Because, again, Kyle and I think the T-800 in the second one say that Skynet's records weren't complete, right? They didn't know which Sarah Connor to go after in the first one.
But in T3, we have the advanced blood records of everybody who's in his lieutenant,
Go fuck yourself. Yeah, all those things, man. It's just, and they all blamed it on what they did in T2 changed everything. Yeah. And it's like, no, man, it's not. This isn't Back to the Future, man.
Right.
You set up these rules and then you want to just keep cranking out sequels and ignore them, but that's part of what makes the story special.
And I can kind of wrap my head around it when they do these things. Like I can be like, all right, I guess that doesn't count. It's kind of like Halloween. Like, all right, now we're only counting 4 or 5 and not, I can do that. But the average viewer generally doesn't. Like when you start messing with things and retconning out movies where this one doesn't count and this one does, the average viewer tunes out. And I think that's a problem they have. Well, another big picture reason why I don't think they should be making Terminator movies anymore is they're not making money. Like, I mentioned before that 3 did all right. 4 underperformed, 5 underperformed, 6 outright flopped. And the Sarah Connor Chronicles, was pulled off the air because they didn't have the ratings.
Yeah. And now without the gimmick of having Arnold in it.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it would do any better.
I mean, when you ask, like, why keep doing it? Usually the answer is, well, money. Corporate Hollywood is saying we're making money. When I hear that they're not making money on this, then I'm like, then why are you doing it in the first place?
I guess because they own the property and they think there's a chance. Everyone looks at Halloween, right? How many dud sequels did they have? And then all of a sudden, all of a sudden the one that came out in 2018.
I'll give it that.
I like some of the sequels, man. Like I'm a big fan of that series for a lot of reasons, but you got to admit the Busta Rhymes one was fucking terrible. And that was
that's Resurrection. I didn't
Resurrection.
I didn't list Resurrection when I said 3 and H2O.
No, you didn't.
I mean, I do like 4. I don't know. The first of the new one, right? Jamie Lee Curtis ones was all right, but the second 2.
Well, that was my point. Like that series was basically dead for all intents and purposes. I mean, H2O came back, gave it a little bit more life, and then they killed it with Resurrection, oddly enough, for a number of years. And then all of a sudden, the one that came out in 2018 comes back and it's huge cash cow. Enough to make 2 more movies that were fucking terrible.
What you're saying is we're rolling the dice, hoping that,
that's what I think they're doing. Yeah, that's what I think they're doing. And that each time they think, well, this one might catch. They brought old Jamie Lee Curtis back in, to be all crazy and gray-haired. Let's bring old Linda Hamilton back in to be all crazy and gray-haired and see if it catches. You know what I mean? And I don't know at what point they're going to give up on that because, and the thing that makes me sad, I mean, for who cares, right? They keep making, we don't have to watch them. They keep making these fucking things. We don't have to watch them. But the thing,
I will. They have me by the balls.
Right.
We don't have to.
We're doomed. You and I are doomed. But the thing that makes me sad is that at some point, some 13-year-old kid who's never seen a Terminator movie is going to either be shown or just randomly put on a Terminator movie. And they might put on Genesis, watch 15 minutes, have no clue what the fuck is going on, never watch another Terminator movie again. If they don't have someone to be like, okay, look, you'll watch the first 2 and that's it. Here, in that order, first one, second one, That's your Terminator experience. Then we can talk about other things depending on how much you like them. If you don't have someone to do that, and you just randomly jump to any one of these series that we've been talking about and watch one of the horrifyingly inferior sequels, the chances of you watching the original that was great goes down a lot. And that's a shame. It's a shame for the people. It's a shame for the original films. It's a less of a chance that they're going to live on.
Yeah. I mean, when we talk about the legacy of the original films, I look at films as art. And you don't just add on to other people's art. Like, you don't walk into the Louvre and start drawing on the Mona Lisa because ticket sales at the Louvre are down, and that's an intellectual property that's hanging on the wall, not doing anything for you.
Right.
Why do we get to just like add on? And I guess that argument is a little nullified by the fact that Dark Fate is James Cameron coming back. It's not just well-budgeted fan fiction at that point. But like I said, this is a guy that needs to be saved from himself anyway.
Look, all kinds of creators will constantly meddle with their own shit, right? You know, we think Terminator and Terminator 2 are amazing and approaching the level of near perfect for what they are, for their genre, for their place. In James Cameron's point of view, he looks at those two movies and he probably just sees a litany of things that didn't go right. Things that he wished he could have done and didn't quite get there. You know, they look at it far differently than fans do. And I think there's that chasm in between. And if you really talk to anyone who creates things, that old axiom that, you know, a work of art, whatever it is never really finished. It's only abandoned. It's really true.
George Lucas.
Yeah.
It's his quote. That's what, yeah.
I don't think he originated that one.
I know he was the one that said it when I heard it.
But I don't think he coined it. He might have taken credit for it, though, old Georgie boy.
I'm sure he would.
But that motherfucker is the king. He's the king of ruining things that did not need to be fucked with. And again, film is the only art form that has become more malleable than it was before, because creators have more of a chance to revise now than they ever have before, right? I mean, there was a time where a movie came out, it was in theaters for a while, and then you never fucking saw it again. We're talking in the age before home video, right? Yeah. You maybe saw it again if there was a revival and it was in the theater again. And then, you know, eventually there was a time where you could catch it on TV, you know, at some point, maybe. But there was no incentive for a creator to revisit old properties. Sequels weren't even a thing, you know, for a very long time. And even after they'd been introduced, they were looked down upon. I mean, some of the earlier ones, like The French Connection 1 and 2, you know, Godfather was the first one.
There's a French Connection 2?
Oh, absolutely. Gene Hackman.
I didn't even know that.
Oh, yeah. Gene Hackman is in it. It is an absolute sequel. I think it's actually based on another book by the author.
That's blowing my mind. I'm surprised with all the controversy surrounding The French Connection recently. Nothing came up about it.
Yeah, somebody was just telling me about all that controversy. I didn't even know that was happening. You could do that with a lot of old movies. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. But, you know, as all these trends in film became more prevalent, Lucas was the first one, I think. He opened the door with it, with what he did with the original trilogy. And when they were re-released into theaters and onto home video with all the enhancements. What was that called? What did he call that? That version?
Special edition.
That was just special edition version? The gold VHS
You're thinking
boxes.
of like The Exorcist, where they put like a funny title on it, like the version you've never seen.
That's what my DVD has on the front of it. I recently cataloged my collection in a spreadsheet. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, this is really what I have to type in? The fucking version that you've never seen? It's not like the complete version or something? No, really? Okay.
They've recently changed it. When it came out on 4K, that version is now called the director's.
Man, we just keep stumbling into film series that really just need to fucking die.
Yeah.
As we just
I did actually watch The Exorcist Believer not that long ago. With the exception of actually really loving the end, how they just like ended that. The rest of the movie is now watching.
It's dog shit. It's pure dog shit. That's another series that has never made a good sequel.
I liked 3. I mean, not as much as 1.
3 is about as close as it came, but again, 3, there's 2 versions of it out there.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a. I'll let you borrow it, man. There's a different cut where Brad Dourif's part is much bigger, and the theatrical version replaced him with Father Karras more.
Yeah.
So that he had more screen time. There's a director's version where it's more of the serial killer, the actual serial killer being possessed by, whatever, however they want it. And that was all very muddy too. And again, that whole bit was added because the studio simply said, this is an exorcist movie. We have to have an exorcism. So they said, oh, okay, we'll just write in an exorcism that has nothing to do with the plot, really, and just shoehorn that shit into a murder plot. But that movie definitely
the original book was just called Legion. They could have just done that, but correct. God forbid we not tack the name of the franchise into the...
We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. Even when you have the writer directing the actual fucking movie, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the best of the sequels, and there are genuinely scary moments, and I do enjoy watching that film, but the second one is not watchable.
The locusts and everything, I never...
And yeah, that's the one that Linda Blair came back for.
Yeah.
And then there's the 2 prequels.
I haven't seen either one of them.
And that's an incredibly interesting story all by itself, because they filmed one with the same protagonist. It's Skarsgård, right? Or no, no, not Skarsgård. The guy from the MCU films who played the professor who gets naked and with the stabs and the Thor. What the fuck's his name? Whatever. Stellan something.
Oh, okay. I know who you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking? Another Swedish
I don't know his name, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
He's the protagonist, right? They filmed the whole fucking movie with one director. And then once it was wrapped, decided, no, we don't like this. Scrapped it. Recast the entire film. New director, same protagonist. And did a whole nother version of it. And then they ended up releasing both of them.
Yeah. I heard one is very psychological and one is just more straight horror.
They're both awful. With terrible CG. One of them has a pack of CG hyenas that I swear to God came out from like a 95 Star Wars video game. Like they look like they're made of pixels and blocks. Like they're Lara Croft boob level boxes. It's fucking ridiculous. Nice. So yet again, that did not stop them. They still thought there was enough juice in that, and they bring back the old lady mom from, again, bringing back the old lady for one more go around. And it just all felt like a gimmick to me, man. It just all, and especially in horror, because some people are doing so many fun things in that genre right now. I think just simply because you're able to make movies look so much better with such little equipment now.
Yeah.
And way less money, of course. I mean, the money still goes to sets and actors and locations and everything like that. But if you can get that shit ironed out, making the film and making it good is a limit of your talent as a camera person, if you're running a really short, small crew, and as an editor. But the stuff that's coming out of the horror genre is incredible, yet we still have these series that just won't go away. They just won't go away. And you know they're going to come back around again. You know Jason's coming back at some point.
That's a tough one. I don't know.
There's a lot of... Is there... Like that's been hung up mostly because of a rights dispute, right?
Yeah. There is actually a fan film that looks okay that was Kickstarted. You know what? I actually threw into that one. It's Neon Fear or something like that.
Yeah, I've read about this. I haven't seen it, but yeah.
It looks neat. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure it's a fan film, so we're not going to be on a level of like Freddy versus Jason or Jason X or like any of those. But it's I don't know. It looks promising, but no, I don't think you're ever going to see Jason just because of the rights.
I like the 2009 remake, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, look, they brought Freddy back once, and it was a disaster. I could
that
see
movie.
them
I mean,
trying
what
that
made
again.
me mad about that movie was that they tried to make me feel sympathetic for Freddy. before finally pulling the rug out and being like, no, he really was a child murderer or whatever.
Disaster too. But, and I'll say this too, a film series that had more installments than you ever thought, and they were all terrible except the first, Hellraiser. They remade that. Hulu remade that, and it's actually really good.
Yeah, was that the Judgment one? I'm trying to remember.
It's just called Hellraiser. It's just called Hellraiser, and it's a remake of the original. But they didn't try to follow the same characters or anything like that. They just took the concept and said, we're starting fresh with this.
Sure.
And the makers really understood what was cool and interesting about the original, and they just wrote that into a really interesting story with new characters and realistic situations with people reacting to crazy shit the way people would really react to crazy shit. And
was this the one where there was like a party and the guy kept bringing people in to get he had like an altar or something, and like every time he killed one more person, like, I don't know, maybe he was becoming more or less human. I can't remember. I saw something like that was relatively recent.
Well, the shtick with this one is that the cube, right? It has a number of different configurations that it goes through before reaching the final configuration, which will open up a portal to the Hellraiser dimension. Yeah. And supposedly the person who opens it gets to ask something of the ruler of that dimension, right?
Yeah, I did see this. Yeah.
Okay, but the trick is... It was
like in different categories. It was like knowledge or power. Or, it's like, I seek knowledge. Or,
Yeah. Experience, I think, was one. Yeah. Knowledge. The lament configuration was another one. That's the final one. But, but every time the cube transforms itself, a blade pops out. And whoever's holding it, if they get cut, they get sacrificed. Yeah. And, the Cenobites come and drag them off into the hell dimension, and it's like this selfish monster sacrifices, I think, 7 people to open his little doorway. And I mean, they added to the original mythos, which wasn't really fleshed out that well to begin with. They took a story that really needed work and made it better and made it more complete. But when you're starting with something that's really good, that's not an option. Like the original Hellraiser, interesting because it was fundamentally weirdly gory, and it was Wes Craven, and it had a definite feel, and it was
Clive Barker.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Clive Barker, and it had a definite feel, and the book was really popular among horror fans, and it, it spawned a lot of similar ideas that turned into really good horror movies, but itself, the story's really loose and the rules are really loose. Yeah. There were things that could have been tightened and done better. And so there's opportunity is what I'm getting at. There's opportunity. Trying to do that with a movie that started out great, there's no opportunity. You're trying to fix something that's already good. Yeah. And you're going to fucking fail. You're going to fail when you try to do that. So
when we talk about opportunity, I mean, I think when you make a horror movie or something scary, people have to be afraid of the thing. And this brings me to the last item that I got on this list.
Okay.
People just aren't afraid of AI anymore. Yeah. Like I was really into the Terminator movies. Nobody has been more into the dangers of technology throughout their life than me. And today, if Genesis were real, I'd have already installed it.
Probably. We have versions of it practically.
We have versions that suck. Like I've got Alexa that can barely turn on my lights. And that's part of the reason why nobody's afraid of Skynet or AI anymore. It's like I go and say like, Echo, turn on my bathroom. And it's like, did you say kitchen? And I'm like, that's not even remotely the same thing. Like, how dumb are you?
Well, that goes back to something too, because when the concept of Skynet was invented in the early 80s, technology and technology companies were still very mysterious.
Yeah.
They were shrouded in this wall of tech, right, that was impenetrable to the regular person. Like, we're talking about an era when they made literal movies where computers could do magic. Like weird science. Like there's a whole bunch of movies they don't spring to mind right away, but where computers had damn near magical properties if you just knew how to fucking
I mean, Matthew Broderick basically calls the Pentagon in war games. Like,
Superman
starts World War III.
Superman 3. Richard Pryor
Superman
just
3.
understands computers like he's playing Beethoven or something. He can just code, you know, like that's how mysterious computers were. Nobody understood how the fuck they worked, but now everyone's got a computer in their pocket and uses one for work all the time, and they know how fucked they are. They know how goofy these tech companies are that produce this stuff, and they see the V1s of everything and the beta tests that just don't work. And yeah, you're right. The mystery has been stripped away, and with that, a lot of the trepidations and fear people have. But there are, I mean, would you say that there still are some dangers posed by AI? Like
Absolutely.
Now we're starting to see these fake porn.
Yeah, the deep fakes. I mean,
the regular people, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember what country it was, like Slovakia or something. There was a thing where one of their election candidates, 2 days before the election, a deep fake went out, you know, that showed him doing something awful or whatever, and I don't remember whether or not it cost him the election, but it was a serious issue, you know. So yeah, I'm not saying there are no dangers. I mean, I think war games is a lot more realistic today than it was then. Like, if you want to talk about like Russia or China or somebody, like somebody's going to hack our, you know, defense grid at some point or another. And I think, okay, when I talk about like AI as part of our defense, you know, our military being a problem, I'm not thinking Skynet. I'm thinking, as much as people think AI is perfect, it's not. Like, you know, I do things with AI all the time for my job, and you got to check the work that stuff does, because it'll make typos, it'll throw in little mistakes,
it'll lie.
And I don't. Yeah, it'll
straight
outright
lie to
fabricate things.
I've had it make up quotes and sources about a topic at me, you know.
And for something that's not perfect, do you want that plugged into your, you know, military? Because, like, I think that's the kind of thing that would be terrifying to me, is if I heard they were plugging Skynet, you know, we're going to call it Skynet, some AI into our military's, you know, nuclear arsenal. That's where there's going to be a mistake. And it's, you know, we were trusting it in 1984 when he said trusted to run it all, but it turned against us. Whereas I don't think that's going to be the problem. I think it's either going to get hacked, or I think it's going to be a mistake. You know, something goes wrong.
Yeah, the AI will be so dumb that it'll just make a mistake. Yeah. Out of not being malicious, just being fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, you want to make a terrifying movie about AI today for Terminator? Make a movie where Skynet sends like 100 million Terminators back in time to take our jobs. That's probably the scariest thing that people look at with AI right now.
And they all have Arnold's accent for some reason.
And one of the jobs that they're going to steal is going to be leader of the human resistance. Like, they're going to put John Connor out of work.
That was the plot of Genesis. They made him a robot.
Jesus Christ, you're right. They did it already.
A nano robot.
There's nothing left to say.
Thing.
There's nothing left to do with these movies.
Nothing. It's over, man. It's over. Well, I think that kind of proves the case, man. I think we're there, you know. If I never see another Terminator property, I'll be happy, and nothing will be lost, I don't think. Hey, maybe somebody more innovative than me, with a better mind for it, will come along with some kind of a new story, and I'll be proved fucking wrong, and I'll have to eat my hat. But I'll bet against it.
The only way you make it successful today is if you can take it back to like a real indie kind of film. Like, if you can make a Terminator movie for like $20 million, it'll make like $150 million. And that would be a flop if they cost like $300 million to make it. But if you can just make a movie about like some AI thing that's like following a girl around, I don't know. It's already been done, but that's the only way you're going to make a financially successful film.
You know, they never did that. They never took the series back to a horror place. Yeah. And, you know, Cameron's original intent was to have Lance Henriksen be the Terminator. Huh. That was his plan, because he wanted... I heard
O.J. Simpson at one point.
Oh, I never heard that one, but I've heard...
Yeah, Schwarzenegger was talking about that. He said that nobody would believe O.J. Simpson is a psychotic killer Ha 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 ha, right?
That sounds like fucking something Variety magazine would make up, but okay. Well, the idea with Lance was that he was like, not obviously a very interesting face, but a fairly relatively ordinary person. Not very large, fairly slight of build, still had something sinister looking about him, balding, right? And then that is a killer robot underneath. That's pretty scary. Now, obviously, when he saw Arnold and it was a possibility, it's like, well, fuck, man. I mean, this will just blow people's minds, having this giant bastard be a fucking robot underneath. And I get it. But if they had ever gone back to that original idea of a stealthy, a robot truly built to be a spy, essentially a spy / assassin, because Arnold wasn't blending in anywhere, even in the future. Like, nobody was rocking 500 grams of protein a day and hitting the gym 3 times every weekday to look like Arnold or any of those Terminators did in T1, right? In that world, no human being was in that good a shape.
You needed the big frame like that to hold those damn miniguns that they had with the plasma rifles and everything.
That's right. And that was one of my biggest gripes with Salvation, is they got rid of that stuff and they just went back to like conventional arms for some reason. I wanted laser guns, god damn it.
It was gonna work.
Yeah. So maybe that's the only hope. Something low budget, gritty, that goes back to the horror roots of what Terminator started out as. But this constant jumping on and trying to expand the universe, it doesn't work, and they gotta fucking stop.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Vin. This was really great. I always love talking about Terminator with you, even if we're hating on a lot of it. But
absolutely.
But there's a lot of it we do love, and that's why we talk about it like this.
Oh yeah, I mean, I do not get it twisted. Terminator 1 and Terminator 2 are 2 of my very favorite films.
Yeah.
I mean, Terminator 2 is basically a perfect film.
I think of this as a lot as I start to get older, and I've had a few deaths in my circle in the past few months, and I think about if I found out I had cancer and that it was going to take me out, what movies would I watch one more time, right? And I think about that a little bit every time I watch a movie. I'm like, why am I fucking wasting my time doing this? Like today when I was watching Genesis. But absolutely, man. T1, I think T1 and T2 would have to make the list of flicks I got to see one more time. And that's a dark, grim endorsement from your friends at Yipee-Ki-Yay, Mr. fucking Falcon. All right. Thank you for joining me, Vinny. I really appreciate it. It's
absolutely
been
anytime. Thank you for having me.
We'll have you back to discuss something that you're maybe even angrier about.
So what you're saying is I'll be back.